that lends a lot of credibility. If you come in and can be upfront and honest and say, actually in this application, I think this product over here that I don't represent would be better for you. That all of a sudden now you become a trusted advisor rather than a salesman.
And I often say that we have all the requirements of space, right? Because it has to go underground and send us data from miles and miles away, and it has to work. Like, failure is not an option.
We'll put on, a standard mule shoe. Ours is slightly different just for that, but it's, everybody's got one.
The top drive and the drawworks really don't care whether the electrons coming at it are from a joystick or a PLC.
The panel, what you see here on the left, which is now controlled by one of my students, is showing you actually the control of our brakes.
As of now, geothermal is a pretty small market.
If you have tortuosity, the casing will be up against the side on part of the well. There won't be any cement there. The cement will have crescent around it.
So managed pressure drilling, it's been defined as a process to precisely control the pressure profile in the wellbore.
The key is being transparent with our clients in this case. So tell them what happened. If we had a failure, tell them exactly what happened. Whether it's our fault, whether it's whatever the issue was, we need to be transparent.
I think it's very important for everyone in the industry to know what's out there and kind of what's happening downhole as well.
I've probably worked on over 40 different performance limiters in my career. If I miss any of those and the computer is raising weight on bit and I miss any of those, I have a train wreck. The computer's going in the ocean.
Here's your new colors, here's your new thing. We don't do that at all.
Here's the tattoo you need to get.
Yeah, here's the tattoo. Sorry about the last one. We used to fake that all the time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vidor Locksmith Show, where we are unlocking the secrets to success in the oil and gas industry, one interview at a time. I'm your host today, David Gibson, and I am so happy to be here with you guys. It's an amazing Friday. This is like the Friday right before the holidays and everybody starts to take off. So I hope you guys are ready for an action-packed day. That some of you are actually joining us from the K&M pre-tower show that actually happened earlier today. It started at 9 a.m. and then finished up just a little bit ago. And then later today, after our show, after the Vidor Locksmith Show, we have JP Warren and the guys over at Capital Petroleum Consultants that are doing a show at noon. They've got 3 different operators, and then they've got a handful of students from Texas A&M's SPE student chapter group. I don't know what it's called. I apologize. But they're going to be on. They're going to have a roundtable discussion later today. So it's a action-packed Friday for live streaming on LinkedIn. And other channels, because I think they're also doing YouTube and Facebook as well for our industry. I mean, it's great to be able to see the amount of content that's being put out and everybody that's doing podcasts, that's putting content out there. So really excited about that. So guys, please let me know where you guys are watching from. If you watch the pre-tower K&M show, put it in the comment section below. Let us know that you tuned in on that one. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you're going to be watching the Around the Rotary show later today as well. And most importantly, I want to know, what is it that you want for Christmas? What's the one thing on your Christmas list that you are dying to get? Let us know in the comment section. I'd really be interested to hear what some of you guys are looking for. We did the show a little bit different this week. So for the event on LinkedIn, we actually had to have people register to be a part of the event, and then it kind of puts their information into an Excel sheet that we can download later. Here are the results. 90% of people did not want to share their information, and the 10% that did want to share the information is pretty much useless because it's whatever email address that you have set up with the LinkedIn. So it's majority of them were personal email addresses. It was just something there that was a new feature on LinkedIn and LinkedIn events. And I wanted to be able to try it out and just see how it would work and see kind of what the feedback is. I apologize to Chad because I think it actually probably shrank the audience for the week because of that. We still got a lot of people tuning in, so that's good. But guys, it was just something I was trying out. Just wanted to see it. We're definitely going to go back to the normal way for the future shows. Speaking of future shows, in January, we're going to have somebody from Cathedral to come on and talk about the actual science of how EM tools work. So EMMWD, so electromagnetic telemetry. We're going to have something like that. We're going to have BJ and Manoj Gopalan from Rhyme to be able to come on and talk to us. Two amazing personalities and guys that I would definitely consider to be friends in the industry. They're going to come on the show. The week after that, Paul Maduro from Baker Hughes going to come on and talk about remote drilling operations. So really looking forward to it and happy to have them coming on the show here pretty soon. There we go. Me and Scott just connected on LinkedIn yesterday. But he says he watches the show, but we just connected on LinkedIn. Scott, thank you for tuning in from Dallas. Happy to have you here. That means an operator, somebody from an operator, is watching the show. We actually have a lot of operators that watch the show, but never comment because I can see those stats. So I can see you guys lurking out there. Even somebody from Iran. Glad you're here. All right. We got Mohammed that says hi. We've got Greg watching from YouTube and from Houston, Texas says Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too. And my mom. She's standing right there, but she's commenting on the show. Love you, Mom. All right. So Mom is here watching. She didn't say what she wanted for Christmas, though. Oh, there we go. Around the Rotary podcast with JP Warren, UH Colorado School of Mines. Thanks for the shout out, brother, and looking forward to today. I'm really looking forward to the show. I've been helping out JP as much as I can with his live streaming stuff because I want it to be able to go off without a hitch. I really look forward to it. There is no competition in the live streaming business. We're all here to be able to help each other. And if somebody says they're competing on podcasts or live streaming or something, they're just fooling themselves. All right. Sadiq says hi from Oman. Stephen F. from Alaska. Woo, but it's cold up there. First time tuning in for the VDOR. Pretty cool stuff. Very interesting topic today. Yes, we've got the one and only Chad Hanak that's going to be on the show today. And also a special announcements from Benny Podigano. I think I said that right. Benny, did I say that right? You shake your head? No? Maybe? Oh, he said he gave me the thumbs up, so I did. All right. Okay. Right. And then Austin Bryant, one of the best. Oh, wait, what's it say? You're the one with the keys to the VDOR. Now, I don't have the keys to the VDOR. I'm the locksmith. The locksmith doesn't show up with the keys. He makes the keys. So, small correction, but close enough. Neil Bergstrom, also one of the influential people in the ISCWSA. It's like a full-blown ISCWSA show today. Nice to have Phil from Kuala Lumpur. He is up late. Look forward to hearing you, Chad, and spreading the word about wellbore positioning. You know what? Let's do this right now. I'm going to throw it out there. Phil, I would like to have you come on the show, sir. At some point in time, I would like to have you come on the show. I've also got Michael Long. Wow, it's like the whole ISCWSA crew here. Paul McClure, thank you, sir. As very appreciative for all the support that you put out there for me. A previous show guest, Graham Mensa Wilmot, thank you, sir. Ian Mitchell says, good morning from the Woodlands. Gabe says, hello from Calgary. I don't know if I've skipped over. Uh-oh, Ryan Kirby, a couple of people from Superior QC. Are they tuning in today? And then thank you so much today, sir. I forgot to mention you in the first initial part, but Nicholas Williams with his freebie, or Friday freebie, not freebie, Friday freebie, mentioned to be yourself. And thank you so much, sir, for the shout out on your show today. And we will try to keep innovating. Hello from Tunisia. My buddy Bob Godbolt, thank you for being here, sir. Lee House, nobody's telling us what they want for Christmas. I can't get you anything if you don't tell me what you want. Somebody's got to say it. Matthew Hill, thank you so much. He's one of the most active people on LinkedIn and in the oil and gas industry networking. If he doesn't know him, I don't think anybody does. But be sure to connect with that guy. I would approve you to be in some of the groups that you've requested, but it says LinkedIn says that you're in too many. So there's some groups that you've asked to be in that I moderate. I can't allow you to because you're in too many so far. All right. Still, nobody's telling me what they want for Christmas. That's right. Roger Gooby is one of the people that helped be able to get Benny on the show today. So Roger, big thank you to you. Quick funny story. We actually had, I think, what was it, it wasn't ISC-WSA meeting. It was something else. It was like the I can't recommended best practices 50 whatever number it was, but they were also holding an American Airlines hiring event, and Roger went over there and got his employee picture taken with American Airlines. Funny story. It's fun. I had a good laugh out of it. Ozzy, thank you for tuning in. Keith Stetler, thank you for being here, sir. See, I love to be able to do this. Somebody got mad last week that I take too long saying hi and thank you and interacting with the audience here. But guess what? It's my show, and I like to do this. Big thank you to Timothy Patton. Timothy, or Tim, I shouldn't say Timothy. I just read the names here. Tim, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. He's the one that actually got Chad out of his little hermit crab and bubble. And it's actually not like a hermit crab bubble. It's he goes inside of a calculator, and he lives inside of a calculator, and that's how he gets to be so smart. And he got him out of it to be able to come on the show today. So appreciate that. And he said he would like 10 follow me rigs for Christmas. Maybe I can get like a little this is a good idea. We get like the little kids pull long trains, and each one of them's got a rig on it, and it's got a string, and then you can pull it. So it's like 10 little follow me rigs. If that works for you, I got you covered. Best sales rep in the industry, Blaine Como. Oh, wait. A laser pointer that actually cuts. I want one too now. That's a perfect size to go in a stocking stuffer. Matthew Hill says $100 oil and $25 gas. Ooh, that'd bring Chesapeake out of bankruptcy real quick. All right, for Christmas, a contract with a great drilling team, oil and gas, geothermal, or storage. Well, all right, guys. So special announcement. Okay, let's get on with the show stuff. I've been enough of this of me talking. We appreciate everybody that's tuning in, guys. So Benny's going to come on and talk about a very special announcement. This has just been released within the ISC-WSA team. There's been absolutely phenomenal people within our industry working on this ebook. He's going to tell you more, but here we are, and we'll go ahead and first have to say, hi, Heather. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. All right. Add to stream. There we go. Benny, thank you so much for being on the show today, sir.
Thank you, David. You can hear me now? You can hear?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Very good. Excellent. Yes, I'm Benny Pujono, currently serve as the ICWSA Well Position Technical Section of SPE as the Well Intercept Chairman. And also with me in the audience is Jamie Dore. He's our co-chairman. Actually, I would like to announce the release of the Wellbore Interception ebook version 3 for the industry use. This is now the third revision of the first ebook that's been published in 2017, then the SPE webcast in 2018. This ebook is about ranging technologies, intercept, applications, and good practices. We move away using the term best practices because it has due to the unintentional negatives, consequences, especially for the younger generation and for the regulatory references and regulators. So as you see, these are the ebook in my screen here. Let me just show you a little bit how to get to this ebook. The first things, you can download it free of charge from ICWSA website. This is icwsa.net, and you can download this here. Just click on here, and you can download the ebook. That's the first one from the main page, or you can go to the Well Intercept subcommittees page. You can download it from there, and then also we have the Well Intercept subcommittee update recording. This is the thing that we discussed in the 50 seconds ICWSA meeting. So there's a couple of updates that we put on this here. Basically, we update a lot of stuff. And total pages are 124 pages. We have 9 chapters, and these are the additional chapter as well. So we update the bibliography and lexicon. So we want to also trying to make the lexicons consistent each other's. Okay, for any comments, anything, you can contact me, or you can contact to Jamie Dore as well. So both, we'll work to address all the changes, and then hopefully we'll make another update probably in the next 2 years. So that's about the wellbore interception ebook. The next announcement I'd like to make is we are also part of the SPE Distinguished Lecture Program. So this we're going to make a roadshow on the road presentation, either online or in person for 2021 and 2022 to discuss more in details about the ebook. And the title here is the good practices in well control intervention via relief well subsurface interception. So that's the two announcements that we would like to make. Just make sure this the announcement is spread to the industry. Okay. Also, I would like to thanks to individual and the companies for their contribution, and specifically to the company for their willingness also to release the trade secret for industry use or for the good of the industry. Personally, I would like to thank Roger Gubi of BP, the previous Wellbore Intercept chairman, for playing a key role to ensure the knowledge is shared with the industry. And also to David for inviting me here to this podcast. And to Chad Hanak, for his contribution to the ebook, and who will be speaking next. So that's all I have for the announcement. Very short, sweet, and hopefully you guys can go to your, if you are the SPE member, go to your local SPE chapters and request my talk, okay? That's all I got, David. Thank you, man.
Well, Benny, thank you so much for being here. Even Jim Tal says, thank you, Benny. Had a quick look, a real accomplishment. Thank you so much, Benny, for everything that you're doing for our industry. And I know we talked about it yesterday real quick, but we definitely want to be able to get you to come back on the show and talk about risk and all of the stories that I think you have that you can share, whatever you can share about some of the relief wells and blowout stuff that you've done. I think there's a lot of great stories there, and we really look forward to hearing more out of you and getting all the details that we can that don't upset your previous employer.
No, it's okay. I'm a free man now. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Benny. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. All right, guys, one little quick commercial break. And I want to say this real quick. So if you guys can give me some feedback on how this looks visually. We're trying out a new camera. So I think it looks a little bit sharper. And I'm also trying out my new microphone. Over the Christmas break, we're going to be like redoing the set and really kind of try to step up the game here because there are some other people that are getting involved. So we got to stay on top and be the best there is. Even though there's no competition, we're all here for you guys. But I just want to be able to provide you guys with the best show. So let me know about visual and audio quality, how it looks. I know it can look different on different platforms. So if anybody's switching between YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, also let me know. Roger, thank you so much. You were the person that really be able to help set up Benny be able to come on the show, and we do appreciate that. So Liel says, very clean picture, cleaner, it looks good. All right, good. All right, guys, so quick commercial break. Y'all know what this is. If you haven't seen the show before, it's the How It's Done. It's on my YouTube channel. Go check it out. We're getting companies lined up to be able to do season 2. It's going a little bit slower than I want to, but as soon as we get a couple more, then we're going to start putting those episodes out. All right, here it is. And then we'll be back with our guest, Chad Hanak, right after this. And here he is, our guest of honor today. Chad, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know I've asked you and your team probably 100 times for this, but I really do appreciate you being here today.
Oh, no problem. You said something earlier about me living in a calculator, and that's really not, too far from the truth. I've heard happiness described as, solving difficult problems, things like that. And this is, my happy place is down in the math, down in the code, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's really where I tend to focus.
Well, I'm really glad you don't take offense to that, because like anytime I've ever talked about you, and not like in a bad sense, but I've said, you know, things about, it's like, oh, have you ever met Chad Hanak? Oh, this guy's like the smartest person I've ever met. Like he's got like an actual calculator in his brain. Like he can do math. Like it's just crazy. So I'm glad you don't take offense to it, because that's, I mean, I've probably said that a half a dozen times, you know, having had conversations with you. You're a very brilliant individual, and I'm glad that you are in our industry. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. So if you guys are watching this and you guys have any questions, I'm going to put this out there at the very beginning. This is going to be kind of a free-flowing conversation today. So we definitely want you guys to be interactive. If you have any questions for Chad, please be able to throw them off, because I know nobody has any questions for me. So be sure to put those in the comment section. We'll get them in as we're going along. So we've got a couple of things that we definitely want to be able to talk about. And first and foremost, because it's been such a hot topic here lately, is the space industry. And so, Chad, you came from the space industry into oil field. So can you give us a bit of the background of like what you did in aerospace?
Yeah, sure. So I was very fortunate. You know, I've been my goal to work at NASA ever since I, you know, first entered college, and I was actually able to do that. I got to work on a lot of really interesting things. I think when I was a co-op, one of the first things I worked in a lab where they were developing a plasma rocket. So they actually had the prototype of the plasma rocket in the lab, and they were injecting the gas, ionizing it, holding it in a magnetic field with cryogenically cooled superconducting magnets. And of course, I wanted to go work on the hardware, and they looked at me and they said, well, you've already been doing guidance, navigation, and control. You're going to do the trajectory optimization. Figure out how to get to Mars efficiently. Figure out how to get to Jupiter. So I got to do that. It was very interesting, but it was just cool working in the lab and seeing everything that was going on every day with that.
I would have to say that first sentence that you just said, you're like the plasma controlled magnetic field. Like that has got to be like the coolest sentence ever. I've never said anything cool about anything nearly as scientific or cool about my company as that. So when you got put on the trajectory stuff, like how challenging was that for you to be doing that? And then how, and in all honesty, how challenging is that for a company or for an individual to be able to start planning those things out?
So it's an extremely challenging area. It's an area of ongoing research, just because it can be a highly nonlinear problem, a lot of possible solutions, and solving highly nonlinear problems is difficult effectively. And so it was one of those things. I was an undergrad at the time. That was really graduate level stuff. I learned a lot more about it when I went to grad school. And in fact, a lot of the things I learned then, I had already been introduced to because of this stint as a co-op. But yeah, it was challenging. It was interesting. I spent a lot of time in the library before I could code anything up.
Wow. So what are some of the, I noticed, so I got an email from Chad to make sure that I get all of this right, because there's no way I was going to be able to remember all of this. So aero capture guidance development, without good nav, there is no good guide. What does that even mean? Like, I don't even know how to ask the question, even though these are the notes you gave me.
And also, we were kind of bouncing back on ideas of, you know, aerospace to oil and gas and cross-pollination. So that's one of the things I also worked on as part of a NASA project is, you know, when you're doing an exoplanetary mission, when you're going to another planet, you know, you've got to get there. You go really fast to get there, and then you have to slow down to be captured in orbit around the planet. And typically the way we slow down is by firing the rockets. Well, all that extra mass costs a lot of money to put up into space. And so the aero capture concept has been around for a long time. It was just basically, instead of carrying the propellant to slow yourself down via a rocket, you just dip into the atmosphere and do a couple of loops like that until you slow down enough to basically enter orbit. And my job at this point in time was to take an older aero capture, kind of prototype aero capture guidance algorithm, and revise it so that it would robustly hit the target orbit they wanted to hit. And what I found out, just doing lots and lots of simulation, because that's what you do at NASA, you design something and then you simulate it to death, was that because of the perturbations in the atmosphere, because we didn't know the density profile of the atmosphere on any given day well enough, you couldn't consistently hit your target. You couldn't hit your apogee. And so you had to put a navigational element in there to estimate the density profile on any given day in order to be able to do it. So if I didn't know enough about my environment, enough about where I was, I couldn't execute the guidance. And to kind of tie that into drilling, you know, it's and I'll tie it in a little bit later, talking about hi-fi nav a little bit. But unless you know enough about where you're pointing, what your tendencies are, what your position and angles are a bit, it doesn't matter what you're doing from a directional drilling standpoint. It's not going to be nearly as good as it could be. You need good nav to have good guidance.
So you were actually having to predict the weather to be able to make sure you could land correctly?
More like stick your finger out or hand out the window and see what it was doing as you're going through, as you're plowing through the atmosphere.
Oh, okay, okay. I was thinking that maybe y'all would have to do it like way ahead of time. I was like, oh, so not only do they have a hard time predicting weather here on Earth, but now you want to predict the weather on Mars a couple of months in advance. That would be extremely difficult. So some of the other highlights that you said here were the navigation, flight, software, and design implementation for Orion.
Yeah, so that one, and that was actually one of the last projects I did before I left. I had a couple different programs I was working, designing navigation flight software on, and that's everything from designing it. So you got the sensors coming in, and we have inertial measurement units there. So you're using your accelerometers, and instead of magnetometers, you're often using gyros to track your change in space. Then you've got star cameras and horizon sensors, sun sensors, things like that, and ranging, tracking from the ground. But you have to take all this in, and what good does one piece of tracking information or the distance to a ground station do? You have to figure out what that tells you about your 3D position and velocity in inertial space. And so that's what the navigation system is. And so I was designing those algorithms, and then you have to code them. And these are computational hogs. And in flight software, I mean, I have it in one of my presentations we give all the time. When the Orion flew in space, when it came back in, it was re-entering at about lunar return velocity, which is about 5.5 miles per second. And so you have to have a navigation solution that can react that quickly. And so we would have a fast loop and a slow loop. And the fast loop, we would have it would cycle every 5 milliseconds. And then there was flight software real estate, cycle space within that 5 milliseconds that we had to divvy out to all the individual tasks. And then we had to marry that with the slower loop. It was extremely challenging, but you could not be wasteful in the way you coded things.
Wow. That's definitely not 30-second tool fixes updates. So the last one I'll ask you about this, you also did autonomous lunar crater ID for lost in space navigation. That just sounds like an awesome project for you to work on.
Yeah, well, let me ask you real quick, by the way, my video is breaking up a little bit. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so that was more of, it's just a little bit more of a recent interest. I mean, I did it a while back, but basically when they were talking about Orion going to the moon, you're having to do risk assessments and protect for all these different eventualities. And one is you lose comm with the ground. And so at that point, the mission's over, but your comm with the ground gives you your distance at any given time, and you use that for nav. Well, what do you use for nav now? To tell you where you are, so you can do a precise burn to come home. So what I worked on was basically looking down at the ground and just basically looking at an image of lunar craters. We had a lunar crater database that maybe had some fraction of the craters on the moon catalog, and looking at different sizes and dimensions of the craters in that image relative to each other to determine which craters those are, because you know the position of those on the moon at that point. And from that, you can determine your position in orbit and track it and do a burn to come home.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we got...
It says, can hear Chad and David is breaking up. David is currently connected to the stream via mud poles. Oh, he's got jokes. Right. I don't know what it means. Just we're trying to stream way too much. But nobody's here for me. Here for you, Chad. As long as you can still hear me, you can answer the question. Then fine, we'll kind of go with it. Don't really know what to do at this point in time. It just says David's audio is breaking up. All right, guys. We're trying this stuff here. All right. So last question for you about the space stuff. What's your current take on the current, aerospace industry? Because we've got, SpaceX, all the Jeff Bezos stuff, all the private sector stuff. How excited is it to be able to see like the resurgence of aerospace into, I guess commonplace and culture and media?
Yeah, I certainly hope it does. I think that would be the best thing in the world. I mean, working at NASA for a long time, one of the things you see is people work on projects, one project to another their entire career, and it doesn't come to fruition. It doesn't fly. And I think if we get into more of a tourism-based industry, that's going to be absolutely great. And I sincerely hope that happens. I want to be commercially driven. I definitely think you start out, you go to low Earth orbit. You don't bite off more than you can chew. You don't say, well, we're going to put up a space hotel right now. No, you give people rides to low Earth orbit, and I know there are several companies that are doing that. And then you build on that because it's quite a leap. I think to get to low Earth orbit, it's about a fifth or a sixth of the delta V you have to achieve versus orbit. So it's a much more achievable small step. David, are you still on? It looks like I lost you a little bit.
There we go. I was just trying to fix some of my stuff. Hopefully, we're working again. So I didn't hear all of your answer, but I did some of it. So I apologize. I'm being a terrible interview, whatever. It's hard to decipher the time. This is a bit live. Just roll with it. I do like this one. Too much small for the mode, or anybody else was there. I think something okay. Things are not going good over here. All right. Sorry, guys. I think we're taxing the system too much with the new camera. Potentially, I'm not 100% sure, but we're just going to keep going with it. You guys keep me updated on how the show is doing. I actually have to go ahead and turn off the system. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off as well to make sure that we're not using any internet here other than what is being broadcast out. So obviously, I think trying to be able to broadcast with a higher definition camera makes things a little difficult. So with that, all right, tell me a little bit about how you ended up making the crossover from going in from doing things within the space industry and then being able to come over to oil field.
Yeah, sure. So it was sometime between the 08-09 downturn and the 2011 was when I officially got out. But I'd recently gotten my PhD and just kind of looking around during the downturn. And I read about it was kind of a hobby of mine to read about economics as well. Looking around during the downturn, I saw people subject to the whims of the market. And here I'm in a very stable government job, not having, even if the government shuts down, we all get back pay, right? Not having to worry about that. And then also kind of thinking about, as I read about, different economic theories and things like that, how, other people are out there, maybe haven't had the advantages I've had in life or whatnot to get advanced degrees. And they're paying taxes that pay my salary for what I provide, whether they want to or not. They may care about maybe getting a car that doesn't break down as much more than they do about funding spaceflight. Spaceflight might be a nice to have. And so that really kind of sat against what I considered my principles to be. And, it was a slow gestating thought, but eventually I decided I really needed to put myself out there in the private sector and do something that people would voluntarily purchase. And so that's really what motivated it. And I had no idea what I was doing. You talk to some people and they're like, oh yeah, my dad got me into oil and gas, or I had a cousin that was in oil and gas. I had no idea. I was applying for CNC machinist jobs. I didn't know what any of the acronyms meant. And so it took me 9 months to get an interview. And I finally got an interview with Robert Estes at Baker Hughes, and he was talking about doing some fast passive magnetic ranging development. And I was like, I do that. I know how to do that. I'm the person you want. And so I was willing to take a pay cut to get out of aerospace and to get into oil and gas. And here they offered me a 10% pay increase plus a hefty bonus. And I was like, what's this bonus thing? So I was ecstatic, and went over to Baker Hughes and got to work on a lot of interesting projects and got to really travel a lot more than I had before, see a lot more of the world. The oil and gas industry is great in that way. And he's the guy that got me into ISCWSA as well, where I was, secretary there for 6 years on the board, and then as director at large for 2 more years. I think I've made every meeting since I entered the industry there. And that really, I think, is a great way to get involved. You can go to the large events, SPE, IADC events, but it's really the subsections where it's always the same people. It's highly dedicated people to that cause. I think that's where we really move forward as an industry, in those groups. I highly recommend them to anybody that's new in the industry.
All right, so I'm having some seriously technical difficulties, and I apologize, Chad, because it like just completely kicked me off my computer. So we're trying to get everything set up, and I'm actually getting my phone set up to where if I need to, I can just broadcast live from my phone. That would be a completely first. Experimenting with way too much this week here. Experimenting with way too much. So I heard like half of your response again, but I can't do follow-up questions. So you guys that are out there watching, I'm going to need y'all's help with bringing in some more of the questions. Oh, Roger's saying it's better now. Maybe it's fixed. Maybe just refreshing the browser or whatever helped. Okay.
Yeah, it looks a lot better.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll turn my phone off for now. I've got a backup plan now, ready to be able to go. I've also got my webcam set back up. It's ready to go. Whack it with the hammer must have done the trick. Yeah, I think so. All right, Chad. I like I said, I apologize. I didn't get to hear the answer.
That's all right.
This is the best. This is the way to be able to end the year. This is 2020 for us here, you guys. And we're just gonna keep going. I apologize to the guys at Superior QC for screwing this one up for you guys. All right, we're gonna have a good laugh at it. Okay. All right, Chad. So you talked about with the crossover there. Obviously, a lot of similarities between the industries. I think, I believe, like I said, I didn't get to hear your spot, so it's hard to be able to ask follow-up questions. So. I know that you were at one point in time you were with Intuitive Machines. We'll jump into the entrepreneurship. How did you make that jump from knowing being over there with the Intuitive Machines and what you were doing with those guys to knowing that it was time to be able to make the jump over to being an entrepreneur?
Well, that was an easier one. So I'd gone to Intuitive Machines kind of as at the time I'd been debating being a full-on entrepreneur or kind of going to maybe a halfway mode where I would be kind of an in-house entrepreneur, but a little bit safer, partial salary, that type of thing. Didn't quite work out. The deal that I thought we had apparently was never actually, the handshake deal didn't turn out to be true. So that pushed me to go fully out the door. But kind of what put the germ in my head was when I was working back at Baker, and I'm not talking, specific projects or anything like that, but I would watch how the science committee would get together and decide which projects to fund, which not to. And, not naming any specific numbers, but like notionally just think, okay, well, if a project can't bring in, 50 million in a year, it's not worth our time. We're too big an organization. It's not worth our time to fund, and that may be marginal, right? So I was thinking about that and thinking, man, there's a lot of projects that I could do that would maybe bring in, under that level a year that would be very valuable. I would love to do it. It'd be very valuable to me, but they're obviously not going to pursue it. And so, again, not talking about any specific problems or projects, but that thought occurred to me is there's a space out there for entrepreneurs, for people like me to be entrepreneurs. And so I just needed a little bit of a kick in the pants to actually go do it. But that's where I went to Intuitive Machines for a short while and then ended up forming Superior QC just to do that.
So what was it like in the early days of Superior QC?
It was tough. I mean, it was end of 2015, beginning of 2016. Nobody was spending money. Everybody had time to talk to you. We did a lot of free analysis, but nobody was spending money. I think we sold $2,000 worth of services in that first year. I met up with Robert Dufield, who's been with me since the beginning. And we knocked on so many doors, did so many presentations. One of the things, so we started out, we were a multi-station analysis company. And one of the things from cross-pollination wise from aerospace, we have in aerospace and also now in finance and Wall Street, we've got a rich history of estimation algorithms, statistical estimation algorithms, goes back to the Apollo days or before. And a lot of that hadn't actually penetrated, that knowledge base hadn't penetrated as deeply in oil and gas. And so I would see things, it was there some places, but it just wasn't, I guess, generally appreciated that I could see. And so we started doing MSA. I actually did multi-station analysis for Baker, and I have high praise for them for their approach to it. But we'd do a bunch of simulations, and I'd look at things, when you're running multi-station analysis or doing any kind of estimation like that, you run up against a couple problems. One is observability. And that's the idea that if you take enough measurements and I've got a sensor system and maybe it's got 13 different errors, that I can resolve them all down with enough measurements to an infinite level of accuracy. And with the data we have in oil and gas, where a lot of times you're in a straight wellbore, that's simply not the case. You do not have an observable system. And so, yeah, ISCWSA has 13 to 15 error sources in their error model for MWD that MSA can identify, multi-station analysis can identify. Really, you can only solve for 5 to 6 of them at a time in an observable way. So you have to assume the remainder are perfect, and then you choose a subset of 5 or 6. Well, there's 5,000 combinations of 5 to 6 error sources I can choose out of 15. And so we were doing simulations early on with our software, and if you chose one common solution set of subset of errors, you get one wellbore position. If you chose another one, another common one, you get one that was 300 feet away, well outside of the EOU, right? And we've seen this in practice. We've been called in when wells are 500 feet off being run with them. It's due to that issue, due to the non-observability of the problem. And so early on, we didn't have a solution to it. All we could say was, well, if you run MSA in this scenario, you're going to be in trouble. And well, this other guy is giving me an answer, so I'm going to go with him, And that was a huge challenge we faced. And so that's why I basically holed up in my hermit cave for about a year and figured out a way to address those issues. And that's where we came up with Fitter. But
well, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about, because I know one of the ways that we kind of looped people in for the show this week was talking about, there's a 99% chance that your wellbore is not where it's at on the wall plot. So for a very basic fundamental level, because I know you can go way deep in the rabbit hole on this, from a very basic level, what does the industry need to know about the wellbore positioning and where the wellbore is actually at? And then what you mentioned earlier, EOU, ellipse of uncertainty. What are some of the basics there that people or drillers or oil and gas companies need to know?
Yeah, so one of the charts we like to show is, you've got your wellbore. You can think of it as, if you're looking downhole, as a dot. That's where the well, your survey says the well is. But in reality, that what you really have is a cluster of possible locations, like an ellipse of possible locations, more dense, more possible locations in the middle, fewer at the edges. And then if you statistically describe the extent of that, that's your ellipse of uncertainty. So yeah, the survey is not where your well is. It represents the center of that distribution, the peak of that distribution. So it's all it is the center of a cloud, if you will. And then we don't know for sure the size of that cloud. We estimate how large it is by estimating the size of the various errors that make it up. So, if your sensors aren't perfectly calibrated, that's gonna throw error into your survey, right? That can put you in a different point in the cloud. If you have drill string interference, depending on the size of that, you could be, way far away from the survey center, or potentially closer. And it also depends on the direction you're going. Sensor twist, where your chassis is torqued up and your cells and mags are a little bit misaligned now. That can throw you way off. And so at ISCWSA, ISCWSA, and it's like you mentioned earlier, they have great references on ebooks and everything, but we work on the error models there. We try to assess the size of those and come up with ellipses of uncertainty. And so there's kind of an MWD standard ellipse of uncertainty that most people assume they can use if they're not doing any kind of survey management. And what we find is that is a bad idea, because even that ellipse of uncertainty, even that error model, assumes you're doing some minimum level of quality control. You're double checking your sensor calibration. You're double checking your magnetic spacing, which I'm going to tell you, nobody has proper magnetic spacing according to that error model in US land. And so we go into a customer sometimes that aren't doing anything, or maybe they're just doing IFR, which IFR does great things for you. I highly recommend it, but it is not helping your well-to-well spacing. You can have wells crossed using IFR, and we'll see. It doesn't fix that problem. It's not what it's used for. And so we'll go in, we'll see wells 500, 600 feet off. We'll see wells crossing each other. And when we look back at data for customers who aren't using anything, and they have no idea it's that bad. But really, even the MWD standard error model assumes a minimum level of survey management, even if it's not corrections. And typically what we see is, if you're not doing corrections, you're probably not doing even the other things that are required to run the minimum model.
Okay, so I've got a lot of follow-up questions this time. So what are some of the basic things that MWD companies should be doing, and what are some of those things that you find that are most often missed?
So if you're not going to run, say, survey corrections, what you should be doing at a minimum is verifying sensor calibration, right? And what type of, and looking at roll test results, even though roll test results themselves are typically imperfect, they don't catch everything. You should be calculating what magnetic spacing you need to be within the error model you're using. And typically, and we've got some charts that customers can ask us for that we'll give them. Typically, it's direction dependent, but it's going to be more than you're using. So your sensor needs to be farther back than it actually is. And then please don't use IGRF as a reference model. The declination uncertainty on that is huge. Use something like BGM, HDGM, IFR. There are various high definition and in-field referencing providers. All of them are of high quality. You know, I do highly recommend that. And that's mainly for your declination error, your magnetic declination error. And you can think of that if you put a pin in your map at your surface location for your multi-well pad, the declination error, but your hard lines are fixed, the declination error is going to rotate your wells. So that it's going to reduce the uncertainty in that rotation angle. It's your map rotation error, right? But what it's not going to do, it's going to rotate all those wells on the pad together. It's not going to help rotate one a little bit more than the other. That's what survey correction does. And what we typically see though is by the time a customer looks and says, well, I got to do this, 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 and this, and oh, my MWD has to be how far back now? It's much simpler and more effective just to run survey corrections and take care of that.
So how many times, you don't have to name any clients or anything specific, but how many times have you seen wells cross over each other and the client, potentially the client, not even know that that's happened?
A lot of times. I mean, we've been called and we've seen well collisions too. And I can't say anything about any specific case, but we've seen well collisions because of that as well. So I mean, it's frequent.
Wow. I think that's something that the industry needs to hear, is that because a lot of those instances obviously can't be publicized. Nobody wants that getting out there. I mean, nobody within the oil and gas industry wants it to get out there, but it needs to be known that these things are happening and for people to be able to kind of open their eyes up. So how much of the time are you guys spending just like doing industry education?
Quite a lot. I mean, that's one of the ways you could look at it, is that's really what we sell. I mean, obviously we sell process assurance and you know, with the survey management piece of it, but yeah, just understanding where your pitfalls are, where you may have a broken, not know it. Because I mean, let's face it, we can't look down under our feet 10,000 feet and see where those wells really are, right? I mean, if we could, it might scare us, but we need rigorous process assurance just to get that most basic piece of drilling an oil well as accurate as possible, as correct as possible. Because everything that follows downstream is based on the survey. The survey is a core piece of that.
So funny you say that, like, you know, because like if we had goggles and we could look down below the surface to be able to see where everything's at. I know that there's some products out there being sold on the fracking side that, you know, maps out like where the frack stuff is. Have you guys ever been called in to be able to like say, hey, I thought we were fracking here, but it shows that we're fracking way over here because of their imagery stuff? Has that ever, like, have you guys ever been involved in a project like that?
We've processed some wells with an eye towards improving the frac knowledge. I can't say that we've been part of that specific scenario, but yeah, I mean, we've certainly from a geologic perspective been called in to say, hey, we were geosteering in real time and it didn't make any sense. Can you look at this and tell us, you know, if maybe something's off from a TVD perspective? And we've been called in a lot on that.
First question, did you IGRF? Yes. Okay, well, there's your problem. Okay, done. Here's the bill.
Yes.
Do you think it's possible that we could use like some of the stuff that they're like the microseismic or seismic little cluster things and be able to use that to be able to verify, you know, where the wellbore's actually been drilled? Is there a possibility that those two technologies could cross over with each other?
So that kind of goes yes and no. You would never use it on its own, I don't think. I certainly wouldn't. And this goes back to the cross-pollination and the kind of rigorous structure for estimation we have in place in aerospace. That's really what we're going towards with Hi-Fi Nav, is something that's a rigorous structure that's very expandable to all different kinds of measurements. You know, we're talking about if you want to incorporate continuous sync at MWD plus continuous sync from rotary steerable or at bit, or you want to overlay a gyro and incorporate that, or say you've got, we don't have this built in yet, but say you had a microseismic measurement and you wanted to incorporate that to refine your survey. We want to a basic platform that allows us to do all of that. That's extremely extensible. And that's, getting ahead of myself a little bit. That's what Hi-Fi Nav is built to be, one of the main features of that.
Well, let's get into that in just a second, but we've had a couple of questions come up and also a couple of really good comments. Lee House says, every directional driller just cringed that your sensor is not far enough back. I can agree to that. I don't know how many times I said, oh, we need to have more non-mag space. And we're like, I've drilled 100 wells out here like this. We have never used it once. Those days are numbers, guys. Those days are numbered. All right. So Eric had I tried to click it and it went away. Is the geologist, or rather the geophysicist, image of the subsurface reservoir not also full of uncertainties?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times modeling decisions are made based upon, so it's full of uncertainties, yes, but that's compounded by the survey uncertainty. And so, I mentioned TVD errors in US land with the gamma log correlation. Another one we see offshore quite frequently is our Sag errors. Giving incorrect TVD or adding extra error into the TVD. And of course, that's going to impact your reserve estimation. It can impact the way you're thinking about managing the reservoir. And SAG is such an input dependent calculation. It's easy to get wrong. And so one of the best practices we recommend is, we want the MWD company to run SAG. We want to run SAG. We want to compare and make sure they line up, because if they don't, they should. And if they don't, there's a problem, and the operator needs to know about that problem so it can be resolved, because those reserves are very, very valuable.
Yeah, definitely offshore. Here we go from LinkedIn user. I don't know which LinkedIn user this is. Usually it's Scott McNeil out of UK, but can't verify because I don't have my other screen working because I'm trying to limit the bandwidth that we're using here. Chad, do you feel using two different sets of magnetics and gyro is the best method to ensure surveys are being managed properly? And I'll make this a two-part question. One, so let's say you use magnetics first and then gyro, or being able to use them in unison, because there are some new gyro well drilling products out there.
Yeah, well, as a general concept, yes, give me all the data. More data should never be bad. It should always make things better. But yeah, and we, you'd like to have them in unison or overlap, or our product is a pad-based product too. So if we get information, if we get overlaps, say on the first well, then we can utilize some of that information on subsequent wells. But all above. I want all the data. It all makes things better. And different physics, yes, are going to allow you to attack different things.
Neil said, C is relative. It's dark down there. Even when there is good evidence, some clients won't believe it. But the steel in the cuttings is a pretty hard to ignore. It's very true. When you start seeing iron deposits in the cuttings, it's this thing looks a little rusted. That's not good. So next question: how can you post-process entire pads? Are clients archiving the raw 6-axis surveys? Question from Stephen F on YouTube. Thanks, Stephen, for watching.
Yeah, typically, not all operators are archiving them, but as long as it's not, too far back and when it was drilled, the directional companies will have them. So typically, we're able to get that data to post-process. Yes.
And we got a question here. What do you recommend for distance between surveys?
It really depends on what you're doing. So we have different. Okay, I'm looking at it from a survey correction standpoint. We have different products, right? If you're using Fitter, and which deals with the survey course length issue in the same way that MSA does, in that it ignores it. You want close together, especially in the curve or anywhere where you're doing a lot of pattern sliding. So 30s or 45s would be ideal. We're never going to get that. With Hi-Fi Nav, that's not needed. It handles the course length issue differently. So you can get by with your standard 100-foot surveys and get a very, very accurate TVD result and left-right result with Hi-Fi Nav.
All right. So based off of this question, I also want to be able to ask, How is the best way to be able to actually go about calculating your magnetic spacing that you're supposed to be using? Now, I know as you said, like if you're doing some survey correction stuff, you don't exactly have to do it, but general practices, we should be doing it. And I know that there are still some of these old GE Tensor Excel table sheets that are still floating around out there. I mean, heck, there's still people out in West Texas using GE Sondex Blue Star tools. So what's the best way to actually be able to go about, calculating and understanding how much non-mag spacing you have? And maybe we should be asking Neil Bergstrom this. I know he'll say have your Gaussometer in your pocket.
Yeah. So what we've done for clients is we put together a little spreadsheet, and it's simple. It relies on some of the assumptions that initially fed the Sag Error model, where they did a small survey of measuring the magnetic strength of monopoles at the end of motors, and they found about a 400 microweber 1 sigma pole strength value. So we just double that, and we say, okay, what's your spacing? If you've got a say 800 microweber pole, what's your spacing from that? We have different spacing options. You can enter that. What's your direction? Okay, given that, here's your azimuth error. Here's the 1 sigma azimuth error, the 2 sigma, the 3 sigma. And you can see, okay, well, I'm drilling at a 300 and I've got 20-foot spacing is a 5-foot azimuth error acceptable to me. And that's how you would calculate it.
Excellent. All right, I did get another question in here. Is there any advantage to real-time corrections on the fly versus batch correction at the end of a run? Is one more accurate than the other?
So in terms of where your knowledge of your well is at the end of the well, the both are going to have the same level of accuracy. The difference is in your ability to place the well. So obviously knowing that I've got a 2.5, 3 degree azimuth error, one of the larger errors, right, in real time is going to allow you to steer that well to the right place in real time versus learning that that azimuth error put 300 feet of error into your wellbore position versus your uncorrected surveys at the end of the run. That doesn't do you a lot of good necessarily, right? I mean, there's a lot of bad things that can happen as a result of that over the course of a run.
So hopefully with this next question, all of Roger's bosses are watching. But Chad, can you talk about the importance, one of the two there, of proper survey database management and the value it brings to an operator?
So, yeah, this is a little bit less my sawhorse, but I'll do my best here, Roger.
This is Roger's idea of throwing you a softball, by the way.
Right. No, it is really important when you're trying to design a well plan, especially in offshore fields, but also onshore. And you need to know what's around you, and you need to know how you may have, what do I need to do to get my separation factor small enough so I have acceptable anti-collision risk, minimize my anti-collision risk. You need to know where those wells are. You need to know how they were drilled, what tools. Ideally, you want the 6-axis data. You need to know what magnetic model, because if you don't know all of that, you have to assume the worst. And the worst is very, very bad. You may not be able to drill anything in that field. So, and we see this too with a lot of older vertical wells in the Permian, where if you just plug in the unknown error model, it's is it a 3 degree cone of uncertainty around that well, or is it a 5 degree? It's something astronomical. And so it becomes really difficult to thread anything through that field. So you need to have your database, your well database, or survey database archived, so you can avoid those type of situations and not have to go to extreme lengths to do something that probably doesn't require it.
I'd like to be able to say this, and like, obviously I'm not the expert that you or Roger is, but anytime you buy a piece of land, you have to be able to get a survey plat that goes with that land. So you buy a house, you buy, just some acreage out, you want to buy a ranch or something, you have to be able to get the 4 corners or whatever the shape of it is. And that is part of, yes, you're buying the land so you can put chickens and horses or put a house or something like that. But that plat is like the essential part of it that says, where the land is. And that's part of essentially the purchasing. That's part of what you're buying. So if you are creating a well and you are creating, a way for hydrocarbons to flow out of the ground, you have to be able to know where that's at. So just in the same sense, you need to be able to know where it is, and you have to be able to have the documentation and the physical assets or the digital assets that go with it. I think Jonathan Lightfoot put it best, is that he said that, those surveys are directly correlated to it being an asset and it being purchasable. Because if you don't have that, then what are you really purchasing? It's like you're getting your name on a star out in space. You don't know where it is, but your name's on a star out in space.
Right. No, I mean, a common mistake we see, and we catch it obviously in real time, but it is drilling engineers want to go so fast, and understandably their compensation is tied to it, all of that. They want everything to happen fast. So it's a bit chaotic, right? It can be on the rig. It's easy to miss things. And a common thing we see is total magnetic correction. Maybe you've got an 8-degree total magnetic correction. It is so easy to fat finger that in the MWE surface system and put a negative on that. And now you're drilling 16 degrees off. Okay, well, to not be able to check that when you're buying an asset and say, okay, I know this well is actually on this property is a huge deal.
I mean, I know there's one point in time that Neil Bergstrom and I were having a conversation. He says, if I could ever find out where a lot of these survey companies had done things incorrectly, he's like, you could probably go back and find specific wells in specific areas that actually cross the lease lines and help people with lawsuits and just take a small percentage. Not that I'm a big fan of legal stuff, but it's an interesting conversation nonetheless to be able to think about.
Yes.
Brad Vincent says here, just a thought on real-time versus end of run. Real-time values will be slightly off due to transmission resolution limits. Very good point. Got to have an understanding of MWD operations. Post-run calculations from memory should be slightly more accurate. Just goes, Brad's flexing on us on his MWD knowledge there for us. For non-mag spacing, I did a presentation at ISCWSA number 35. The slides are at iscwsa.net under meetings from Neil Bergstrom. See, I knew Neil would have something about it. I just knew. I knew he would.
Yes, call him the industry expert on non-mag.
Oh, yeah. By far. Using real-time remote steering software like StarSteer from ROG2. Is it ROG2, ROG1? I'm not even sure how to say y'all's name, guys. Rogi would enhance or not the directional control.
So obviously it's going to help you stay in the reservoir, and depending upon the level of integration you have, it can definitely make the directional control more seamless. One of the things that I've always struggled with a little bit about, Hi-Fi Nav is an extensible platform. We want all the data, but you have to be able to statistically characterize data correctly. And sometimes in the geosteering world, you can have multiple interpretations that both look good. And now I've got, instead of a nice unimodal error distribution, I have two modes, maybe three modes in my error distribution. And that's extremely difficult to reliably process and ensure it doesn't mess up what you already have as a positional measurement, or a measurement that impacts position. But from the standpoint of tight integration and having a survey process that aids the geosteering interpretation, or certainly does not make it more difficult, that is extremely important. And that's one of the things we're trying to do at Hi-Fi Nav.
Excellent. So I got another one here. Kennedy says, during anti-collision monitoring while drilling, please, what parameter, center to center distance, or slide or side to side separation distance is better to avoid collision with existing well bore?
I tend to, so first of all, let me say that we don't provide anti-collision services. The ISCWSA has recommended 2 papers with recommended practices for anti-collision. So I would refer to that as the authoritative source. There's been a lot of industry collaboration on that.
I was going to say, this one's had a lot of talk at the meetings.
Yes, it has. And, I'm going to punt on that one. I'm just going to refer to the meetings on that. It's not my bailiwick.
Mark Willard did say, to Roger Gooby's point, database errors will always have the potential to be orders of magnitude greater than downhole survey errors. Selecting NAD 83 instead of NAD 27 in database can move wells hundreds of miles. That is absolutely right. If you put them in the wrong, was it geodatum? I don't even know what the map zone, I think. I'm getting on my terminology backwards here. I just keep track of directional and drilling MWD companies now. I don't do the operational stuff. But hey, Mark, thanks for watching. Mark is actually our is the ISC-WSA member outreach. I think that's what he's called.
Yes.
Mark, thanks for watching the show, and thank you for your service to the industry and what we're doing. Phil says, we need to do a mini survey on current drilling tools. The table was created from the 1980s, 1990s BHA components. No RSS BHAs were considered, and these BHAs are not all non-mag. That's very true. Boy. So with that, then I've got a question for you, Chad. If we get to, I know that there's a lot of people out there that are working on this, being able to try to get away from using magnetometers and being able to use more of like either solid state gyros or some futuristic style gyros. If we can get to that point, is that going to reduce the need for in-field referencing, these high definition geomagnetic models, even the point of maybe even reducing the need for multi-station analysis? Or is there still a case for, hi-fi nav and or the fitter and then MSA, even if we have tools like maybe like an IMU potentially downhole?
Yeah, no, first of all, I think it's great to get, as was mentioned earlier, more different types of physical measurements downhole. But let me say this, because we do comparisons with MWD versus gyro all the time. It doesn't matter what survey instrument you put downhole. You need to have a rigorous QC process around that. And we do forensic investigation, like I said, and just like magnetic measurements need QC, gyro measurements need QC. And just like there are things that can impact the QC of magnetic measurements and throw those off if you're not careful, the same is true of gyro measurements. And so I don't think as an industry it's wise, given how ubiquitous magnetic measurements are presently, to just chunk those in lieu or in favor of gyro measurements. I would want both, put them both downhole. Or get overlap or something of that nature.
Here's another great comment. Heather Bedoya says, grid north versus true north. People getting that one wrong. I can't believe that still exists.
Yep.
So we were talking about some of the new technology. What are some of the new things that you guys are doing to be able to push the envelope forward at Superior to be able to go even further into the industry as far as being able to reduce that ellipse of uncertainty?
Sure. Well, yeah. So, like I mentioned early on, we created Fitter, and that was mainly to, remedy some of these known drawbacks, limitations of multi-station analysis. So it was kind of being used in areas where it wasn't designed to work well. And I think I have a quote from the Transportation Safety Board investigation of a Tesla crash, talking about their autopilot system, why it caused a wreck, saying, hey, it was being used under a scenario that it wasn't designed to operate in. And so we have a lot of that. And that's what we did with Fitter, was we created an algorithm that did not have those use limitations, so people wouldn't have to use something in the way that it wasn't designed or in a direction or area that it wasn't designed. And I think I made a note on, just harkening back to the flight software stuff. When I worked on MSA, it would give you an answer in a second or less. First time I designed Fitter and ran it on a well, historically, it took 3 hours to run. That's the computational difference. And so I really had to go back to my flight software.
Talk about waiting on MWD.
I really had to go back there. Now we've got it turns over in 2 to 3 seconds now. So quite a bit of optimization going on there. But then we really couldn't do everything we wanted. The ability to combine different sets of data into a single survey log, the ability to really properly model the shape of the wellbore, and address the slide rotate impact and its impact on TVD and geosteering. And then again, by properly combining surveys, really reduce your EOU. If you can get overlap between the gyro and MWD survey, man, now you're hitting everything. You're hitting all the error sources. Your observability, there's that word again, shoots through the roof. Didn't have a great way to do that, and that's where we came up with hi-fi. And just think about it conceptually for a second. If I have 2 MWD surveys, say I'm landing the curve, and I'm exaggerating a bit, but say I've got an inclination at 70 degrees, and then 100 feet later, I've got an inclination at 90 degrees. And then I have a gyro survey in between there, and it measures 90 degrees. Is that a good survey? Can I combine that with the other 2, or is that a bad survey? Because if I just use minimum curvature to interpolate, I would get 80 degrees, right? But what if I slid the first half of that course length, got my 20-degree dogleg, again, an exaggeration here, and then rotated out the second half?
I don't think that's an exaggeration.
But anyhow, Then, I mean, if I just average the two, the 80 interpolated from minimum curvature and the gyro survey at 90, I'd get 85. That's 5 degrees off, right? And that's going to put a big TVD error. So HiFi Nav, one of the big things that it does is it addresses that problem. It allows us to rigorously, properly combine different error sources, even ones like continuous sync that are not a full survey and of different qualities. And that gives us, going back to the arrow capture example, better navigation, better tendency estimates. What are your rotary tendencies? What is your real motor burr rate? What's your slide efficiency? Where are you point? Really much better projection of bit that allows for better directional drilling, frankly.
So essentially what they're doing now is putting multiple MWD directional modules or directional sensor packages into the MWD tool string, correct?
There are distributed sensor solutions, that's correct. And we've worked on consuming data from those. Yes, absolutely. And that's a great solution in my mind. It also helps you better identify sag errors, borehole misalignment errors, that sort of thing too. So it's highly beneficial from my viewpoint.
So do you see this as being something that's going to catch on with a lot of operators? I mean, obviously it's something that, you guys are commercially selling and stuff and not to be too much of it, but do you really see this as being the future for the industry?
I do. Yes, because of its flexibility and what it can do. I mean, it's like going from selling MSA to selling fitter. I don't want to be in the point of telling you, hey, you have an error, you have a problem here, you can't do that. It's not going to give you the solution you want. I want to be in the position of telling you, you've got a problem, here's the answer. We can fix it using this. And that's what this platform does. And then, I alluded to better directional drilling. I think when people really start to see what it can do, and I'm not going to go too much into that right now, but they're going to be extremely impressed, again, with what better navigation means for better directional drilling.
So do you think that that we should do more training, maybe so, with the directional drilling field staff? And they're not even really field staff anymore, office staff, but the directional drilling and MWD practitioners on educating them more about, what these concepts are?
I do think it would be helpful. And you got to understand their position too, right? They're going, sometimes 300 feet an hour and trying to consume data through a fire hose. And, if you tell them, okay, well, you got a correction and, it's a degree and a half last time. And now because, your tool face changed 90 degrees, now it's, 0.9 degrees or something like that. That's a frustration. So I think we need education, but we also need better automation, better data linkages that do a lot of those things for them so they can just react to issues as they come up.
So do you think that this will, like, being able to do mathematical computations and stuff, and whether it's yours or some of the other competing companies, do you think this is going to be an integral part in the automation going forward in the not just directional drilling, but in the drilling space?
Yes, so long as people. So I've seen two different approaches to automation. I've seen people that try to just automate everything, and their immediate and urgent goal is to make everything completely automated, right? And that's not the right way from what I've seen. You want to do incremental automation. You want to automate the tasks that you can reliably automate, the calculations you can do reliably, so that the person can be more productive. They don't have to do all that, focus on that. Now they can focus on managing the overall process, managing the software, looking at potentially more rigs at one time, because the more mundane stuff, calculations are done automatically and reliably.
All right, so we've got a couple more questions coming in here. Has your software been used to analyze wells in the far north where they experience magnetic storms daily?
Yes, we've done live survey managements on the North Slope of Alaska and in the North Sea. Yes, and we use.
I don't know who Daniel Robinson is, but I feel Robson. Sorry, not Robin. Might work at. That almost seems like a softball question, but anyway. All right, Scott Carsetter, my newest LinkedIn connection, asks, what impact does RSS have on HiFi Nav in laterals? So rotary steerable is one of the difficulties of rotary steerable that we're working on is there are a lot of the languages effectively for communicating with them are different from provider to provider. I mean, we all know what a slide is, what a motor buildup rate is, what a tool face is, but the different kind of downlink commands, deciphering that and getting those to come across automatically, that's a definite hurdle to getting it to work. The other part is rotary steerables do tend to have less of I would say
their transitions are a bit smoother. Typically, now I know they can. I've seen some paths where they get a bit wobbly, but from a slide rotate Stockhausen effect perspective, they don't tend to suffer as much. We still do see error with those, but in terms of being able to, there's no reason we can't utilize them. There's no reason we can't combine different measurement errors and reduce the EOU substantially and get an overall better survey out of it.
So we do have a comment here, and I want to make sure that we address this one correctly. Gamma ray markers usually are the solution to compensate those measurements errors as well. There's a paper by Ed Stockhausen that I would highly recommend you read. So Ed's not a directional drilling or survey error expert, but he talks about how, like, if you're drilling with, if you get TBD uncertainty and then use your gamma ray, well, then that shifts your geological model into the essentially into the wrong place. So you can't always rely on gamma ray signatures. You still need to be able to make sure that your depth and your survey corrections are correct. So
absolutely.
I answered something. Yay! I've been paying attention at the ISCWC meetings. Chad, your view on running multiple DNI packages to improve accuracy versus some of the new dynamic drilling survey on bottom frequent survey algorithms. We know what we're talking about here.
Yes, we do. And yes, I've been involved with that error model development as well. So there are systematic errors that just because you have a dynamic drilling survey doesn't mean those errors are addressed, right? They're still present. And having multiple DNI packages, and I'm not saying we have to have multiple DNI packages all the time, far from it. I'm just saying it is a very nice redundant set of measurements to use to knock some of these errors out. If I can get it, I absolutely want it. And that really gives us a lot more insight into those systematic errors. You can have a dynamic drilling survey and have no idea what your axiomagnetic interference is. Or maybe you've got some sensor twist that's coming off that can really move you when you're drilling in north-south direction. That dynamic drilling survey is not going to remedy that issue for you. Having two DNI packages is going to make that infinitely more observable.
All right, another one here. Chad, in your opinion, which is the best survey tool that you prefer to use among MWD, gyro, or the classic magnetic TOTCO? Which one is reliable? Oh, that is a loaded question.
So we have the most insight into using and troubleshooting magnetic sensors. So, and in fact, all of our troubleshooting, because we know the QC process intimately. The gyro QCing process, all the vendors, are going to differ a little bit there. So even when we do forensic analysis and try to identify why gyros and MWD are differing beyond acceptable bounds, we start with the magnetic side. So I would have to say for us, just because of our depth of knowledge, it would be the magnetic MWD. But don't get me wrong, I love having the gyro there as well, because you cannot observe magnetic declination error downhole with a magnetic MWD sensor. That's an unknown, and sometimes that can be a substantial error.
What if we had multiple magnetic sensors and we were to put, because I know Neil and I had talked about once upon a time, if you had like 3 of them in a row, all equal space, or if you knew the spacing between each one of them, then you could essentially, couldn't you do some special math and cancel some of that stuff out and then be able to measure what exactly the error is? Or not the error, but the effect?
You can measure, you can probably estimate drill string interference in situ pretty accurately from that. I mean, you're still assuming, 1 or 2 monopoles versus the very potentially large number there are, most of them which are negligible. But you're not going to be able to, still not able to observe magnetic declination error with magnetic only measurements.
Sure. All right. So Daniel from earlier said, not a softball question. Having this software would save lots of rig time in those situations. So there you go.
Much easier to get right the first time. Absolutely.
Here we go with Adrian. Thanks so much for watching today, sir. Having some gyros and mags always allows corrections downhole and automation without inputs from surface. Do you see the industry going there?
So I know this is a hot topic, and I tend to swim against the tide here. When we're doing QC, there's so much information that I want to see when something comes up that that requires further investigation. And in my mind, unless we're just wholesale going to wired pipe, there's no way to pump all that up whole. So I want my QC done up whole. And I go back to aerospace too. You put the dumbest parts of your system where they're going to experience the worst environmental conditions. And then the more sensitive parts, the computation, the high horsepower stuff, you put that back in a safe environment. That's kind of, I don't like the idea of putting all the smarts down hole. I don't think I'm going to be able to monitor it and troubleshoot to the degree I want to, that I think we need to be able to provide reliable service. But I know I'm a little bit alone in that position. So.
Well, I mean, I think there'd be a couple operators who don't want their lost and whole liability going up. So there's always that. And then Jose says, great conversation. All right. So, I know I've asked a bunch of questions here. Guys, if y'all have any more questions, be sure to throw them out here real quick. I did notice this last week when my cousin was watching the show, and he actually had some questions for John Clegg towards the end of the show, but because he was watching on a lag, the questions actually didn't come in until after we ended the show. So if you guys are hearing this now and we don't get your question up, it might be because you were watching on a lag. So I do apologize for that if that does occur, but it's not my fault. It's yours because you're watching on a lag. But then again, it could be my fault. We've had a ton of issues here today. Chad, any last things that you want to share? Anything that you want to put out there for the industry?
Not that I can think of at the moment. I think we've covered quite a few things. I do, again, want to put a shout out to the ICWSA and everybody doing good work there to move standards in the industry forward. And again, get involved with local sub-chapters of the SPE, of the IADC, and volunteer, contribute, move things forward, make great connections. I highly recommend that.
I personally do recommend the ISCWSA. It's a great chance to be able to meet a lot of the industry leaders at a singular event. Now, granted, I know we're not having these events in person, but even the virtual side of it, there's still a lot to be able to, interact and get to know a lot of these people. And they are just people. They're easy to be able to walk up and start talking to. I think that's it. Oh, there we go. So Mika Williams tuning in saying Merry Christmas. Thank you. Well, thank you guys all out there for watching. We really do appreciate it. I do want to give a quick shout out. If you guys can, go back and watch last week's episode with John Clegg. We've actually had so much talk about that episode last week about innovation and invention during downturns and just the whole concept in general that I think John's actually going to be pushing to be able to see if we can get it as a TED Talk. Not my conversation with him, but like he'll be able to go do that presentation as a TED Talk. It's absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I highly recommend it. Even outside of oil and gas, it is a great conversation piece. So if you know anybody that's doing innovation or doing invention, stuff like that, working on business models, it was a phenomenal interview. I actually need to go back and watch it because a lot of times when I'm doing the show, I've got a lot of things kind of going on here back behind the scenes, trying to get the comments, doing all that stuff, and I didn't get to take any notes, so I have to go back and watch it. So we got a lot of people sitting here saying thank you. David says great conversation. Michael Sorrentino, the house, great show. Thank you guys. Thank you guys all so much for watching, being here with us. We're going to be taking a break over the next couple of weeks. We'll be back in January to be able to start this thing all over again. I already mentioned some of the guests who they were. Big favor of me to be able to ask is please go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube right now and you have not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. I'm only asking for one reason. I want to be able to broadcast live remotely from a mobile platform. I've got a special thing that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to keep it under wraps as long as I can. I want to be able to say what it is because then maybe people would be more prone to be able to do it. But we're going to do a live broadcast on YouTube. Can't do it on LinkedIn because the platform doesn't allow it, but we're going to try to do it on YouTube. But I have to hit 1,000 subscribers before I can broadcast live mobilely. It's just their rules. That's what it is. It would help me out greatly, and we can do one show. If it doesn't work, then everybody can go hit unsubscribe, and I don't care. We just need to be able to do it for one show. Roger Gooby saying, great job, guys. Enjoy the holidays. Roger, thank you so much for everything you've been able to do in setting this one up. Brad Vincent, the guys down there at Drill Tech down in Bowbridge, I think, or is it Lafayette? It's in that area. Yeah, Lafayette. Thank you guys for tuning in. Ian, the guys at Real Well. Ari, very insightful. Thank you guys. Masood, thanks. LinkedIn user, thanks for the explanation and great talk. Wish I knew who the LinkedIn user was. Daniel Robson, thank you, sir. Emil, Kennedy, and Greg. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Let me know who you guys want to be able to see on the show here in the near future. Also, go check out Superior QC's website. I don't know, did the CEO tune in today? He had commented something on LinkedIn about it. So hopefully,
I can't see who's on. So,
well, if Patterson's CEO did happen to watch today and would like to be able to talk about all the keys to the VDORs that he has over at Patterson, wants to come on the show, we'd be more than happy to have you. Come on. So, guys, until next year, have a happy New Year, have a Merry Christmas, have a happy holidays, and until next time. Let me see if I can get this pulled up at the right time so that I can do it correctly. As always, guys, know your industry.